This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest! Straight up light you on fire for a coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back with Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! A magnificent goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am Jason Jarvi, and with me, as always, is John Macaroon with a brand spanking new MacBook sitting in front of me. How's it going, John?
Feeling good. A lot of great things happening for the network. But before we get into all the sports talk that we're going to do here on this fine podcast, you ever have one of those mornings where you just kind of rush out of the house, you forget the key things, you start spilling coffee all over yourself? Kind of one of those I'm having on this Tuesday, a discombobulated morning. I spill coffee on myself. I walk out of the house with the laptop, with the gear for the day's worth of podcasts that I'm doing. We're doing 3 today here at this network. And then I get some garbage that was left over from the office the other night, and I grab it and I spill it on myself. It's like, you know what? I have far too many of those days than I kind of would like to admit, but my goodness, man, what a start to the morning for the doc.
You got to take it easy. You got to take it a little bit slow, and I get it where sometimes you're just rushed and you have to make those kinds of days work. But for the most part, you gotta go with the flow of things, man. I didn't want to bring up the stain on your shirt. You look like a slob, and hopefully people don't bring that up. But, maybe you should have a backup shirt here.
Maybe I should text the wife and be like, hey, I need a backup shirt. But yeah, it's, stuff happens sometimes. But
hey, bring me a shirt, woman. Sorry, Andrea.
How's all things going in your world?
Things are going, working at the station, playing that hip-hop music. Pistons is back. They're doing okay. They can't seem to get it right on the road, but hopefully Reggie Jackson can get back soon, and he's going to really help out that team when he gets healthy.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking basketball, especially today on Tuesday, because the announcement is coming later this afternoon at 3 o'clock that the Pistons are moving downtown. They're going to be, co-inhabitating with the Detroit Red Wings starting in the 2017 year. And I guess everyone kind of started to talk about it when Arm Tellem was hired here, in that, he's probably working on something big. And once Little Caesar started to go up and then the talk started heating up, I think it was... A lot of people didn't believe it, because why would you move into an outlet where you're kind of a co-partner when you have your own facility that you own outright?
They just put a ton of money into that. They got the gigantic new the screen, so the signs weren't pointing towards moving downtown, even though I think everybody has been really pushing for moving everybody down here. And now it's finally going to happen. They've always been in Auburn Hills my entire life. So now I'm going to be a part of, in my lifetime, the Lions moving back from Pontiac to Detroit, and now the Detroit the Detroit Pistons coming downtown, which, I think they should. This is a really good opportunity to maybe rename the stadium that hasn't even been built yet, because Little Caesar Arena, I still don't like that name.
Yeah, it's a tough name to kind of get used to. I think a lot of people are going to shorten it to the LCA or however they're going to do it. But I think when you look at it now, big picture wise, Goris wasn't going to move down there unless he became a partner with the Illiches. And when you look at that brand spanking new arena, you're going to have concerts, you're going to have big basketball events already within the first 5 years of the place being open. You're going to have the Red Wings, Pistons. And, if you're from Oakland or Macomb County and you were used to going to the Palace, I know a lot of people are chirping a little bit, and some hockey fans are not exactly happy that the Pistons are going to be sharing the arena with them, but I think it's a good idea overall, and that the decision was made knowing that it's going to help Tom Goris' interests. He wouldn't go down there if he didn't think he was going to make a lot more money being partners with the Illiches than staying out there at Auburn Hills. And
it just works. You see it works in other places. They do it in Boston. I think Washington does the same thing. It works. And one thing that it might actually bring, maybe the NBA All-Star Game comes to this brand spanking new arena. They're going to come to the Little Caesars Arena to have an All-Star Game. I mean, if it was out in the Palace, you're more than likely never going to see it come to Detroit. But now that it's going to be in Detroit, not all of Detroit is coming back, but that midtown, downtown area is really being built up. And I wouldn't be surprised within 5 to 10 years that we have at least one All-Star game in downtown.
Yeah, and probably, if things go well, maybe the Lions will potentially, and we'll talk about them shortly, potentially make a long playoff run. They'll be in the Super Bowl, and maybe, the Lions hosted the Super Bowl at Ford Field, and it was, by all accounts, a pretty decent success. Not too many complaints outside of the weather, which in January, February is going to be cold, but Ford Field is an indoor arena, so I think the Super Bowl probably is going to come back here in the next 10, 20 years, and that Midtown area with the arenas all close together, literally the arenas are so close together that it's outstanding for the fans in terms of a central location. But the part that concerns me, and something that I always look to, is my wallet book, my pocket. And being that, you're going to have the Red Wings and the Pistons with the new arena, ticket prices aren't going to be as stagnant as they have been. The Red Wings are relatively affordable, but average tickets for the Wings are between $40 and $50. Right now at the Palace, you can go enjoy decent basketball with a decent seat for about $10. You can go. Parking's $10. The ticket you can get for between $10 and $15. And so you're not going to see that many great seats at that price at the new arena. And plus, what are the sight lines going to look like for the basketball arena? Is it going to be where it's going to be truly a nosebleed when you go to the new arena where the Pistons are at?
It's going to be okay. I don't have any qualms about it. I think a similar arena that I'd probably have a comparison to what the LCA, whatever you want to call it, is the United Center in I think it's United Center in Chicago, where the Blackhawks and the Bulls both play. And it goes up pretty high, and it's just something you're gonna have to get used to. You take the good with the bad, and you want to talk about ticket prices. I think that's the price that you pay for coming downtown, which I know there's some people who will complain because they may live 10 minutes away from Auburn Hills and they can go see the Pistons for a cheap amount. But if the Pistons start getting better, which they are starting to get better, you're going to see those ticket prices rise. That's what happened before. Before the whole going to work resurgence in the early 2000s, they were literally giving away those tickets. Remember that they always had those free tickets laying out at every store that you can just grab like 5 of those, and then you get a free ticket. Once they started getting good, the tickets started getting hotter, and people were going. How many consecutive sellouts did they have? Or at least they said that they sold out those games. So it's going to happen anyways if the team gets better. And if they do continue to suck, maybe you have to play a little bit more to go see a Piston game.
And I know you were chiding me a little bit about the cost of a MacBook, but look at that quick update regarding the United Center. You know what the very first event was that was held at the United Center?
I don't know.
1994 WWF SummerSlam, which we can look up here on the WWE Network in the background here at the studio. How neat is that? But yeah, it is, home of the Blackhawks and the Bulls, the United Center. But now, guess what?
Right.
Guess what else we can now kind of look into regarding the new arena?
What's that? Oh, bringing a WWE matchup?
Exactly. Maybe WrestleMania coming back. But no, also for our own interest, I'm going to now look into what the specs are going to be in the press room. Because knowing what this network is now capable of, being that we're developing contacts and relationships with the PR staff of the professional teams, the college teams, maybe, just maybe not the first year, but we'll give it a try. Maybe we'll be in the press box as a DSP network doing some coverage, and we can be covering the Pistons and the Red Wings in their new arena under the DSP umbrella.
Well, I definitely have to say that the press box it has to be better than what the Joe Louis is. The Joe Louis, it's literally a bar. Like if you go to any dive bar, that's essentially what it is, just at the top row, and there's a seat. They got the old swivel chairs, and you can grab some popcorn and a pop, and it's compared to, because I've been to to Comerica Park, and it's a nice air conditioned place, and not the same.
Ford Field is immaculate. Their press box, oh my goodness. You go up there to the elevator, and you had great food. They had, I went to Ford Field December 2015, covered the Quick Lane Bowl with Central involved, and it was a great experience all around. It was first class. Although it was a little bit difficult to maneuver if it was your first time there. it was a little bit hard to kind of know where to go from the press box all the way down the elevators into the media room because it's all the way in the basement. So It's interesting stuff. But yeah, we'll see how this is going to play out. I'm interested to see what the ticket prices are going to be. But the announcement, when you hear this podcast, is going to be at 3 p.m. on Tuesday. And it's done. We all thought maybe it wasn't going to happen, that it didn't make sense. But in the end, when you have something new and glitzy and glamorous, hey, people are going to be attracted to it. And the LCA is going to be home to 2 professional teams. All 4 teams will be in Detroit, and it'll be something nice to see starting in 2017.
So, I mean, we got to talk about these first place Detroit Lions, though.
6-4.
6-4. I went down to the game yesterday with my parents, my brother, and my nephew. We sat in the family fun zone, which I don't know. Have you ever sat in one of those family fun zones?
No.
And I didn't realize it at first. So we got there and then found out that there's all these kids around me. There was one boy, like maybe 2 or 3 rows behind me, who he was so shrill. Like when it comes on the screen, oh, make some noise, he would scream. And it wasn't how loud it was the pitch. The pitch was so high that it started to literally ring in my ears. But anyways, besides that, I actually saw a couple of people get kicked out of there because they had a beer. Because they don't allow a beer in the family fun zone, even though the entire stadium is sponsored by Bud Light.
You mean, so the rules are, if you buy a ticket in the family fun zone, you get up and you go buy a beer.
You can't go back to your seat.
You can't go back to your seat with it, because that means probably somebody ratted him out then, don't you think? Or security saw him?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually think the first one we saw was somebody ratted him out. Is that he's like, oh, you have a beer there. Don't come. You're in the family fun zone. But yeah, the other guy, I wasn't sure why he got kicked out. He might not have been able to sit there. But besides that, let's get into the game. It wasn't that great of a game in the first half. My wife even texted me, and she's like, this is an awful game to watch. But it picked up, and I don't know, how did you feel about this win? I know when we talked last week, we wanted to see a blowout game. You wanted to see a statement game going up against a bad Jaguars team. How do you feel coming off of this win?
Well, it's kind of complicated in terms of how I feel, but when you hear what the Lions say after games, it kind of lends kind of credence into what kind of the philosophy is. They believe that, I think they gave Jacksonville way too much credit, talking about they have talent and things like that. And I really believe it's a team that plays to the level of their competition. You should have went out there and destroyed Jacksonville. They played so bad. I mean, in terms of the fact that everybody knew on that 4th down play that the Lions were not going to go for it. They're just trying to bait.
Oh, my God.
And they jumped offside. I could not believe it. The second time Jacksonville's done that. And the Lions said that they used film from previous games versus the Chargers, that Jacksonville was prone to jump offsides. I was shocked. But you know what? A player that kind of is a microcosm of what the Lions kind of represent is Andre Roberts. I mean, it's a guy that's kind of a mid-range guy that fumbles, a punt return, gets everybody kind of upset at him, then comes around and makes a spectacular...
Immediately redeems himself.
And at times when the offense is bogged down, Stafford is utilizing Andre Roberts in the passing game. So a guy like that kind of signifies and represents what this Lions team is. It's kind of a above average, slightly better than just normal football team that's sitting at 6-4. But when they go up against, I guess if you want to look at it like this, it's a good team because they're able to come back in the 4th quarter. They have the ability to play tight games. But when you look at the matchups they're going to have if they get to the postseason against a Washington, against a Dallas, against a Seattle, I don't think that they match up. And all I kept thinking was, when I was looking, because I was also at the same time looking at my fantasy scores, what would this Lions team look like with Johnson on from Arizona, the running back? Yeah. Oh my goodness. Do you see what he's doing?
I've completely about face, because over in the preseason, I was completely bashing David Johnson. I thought he was all smoke and mirrors, and he's completely changed my view. He's one of the best, if not the best, running back right now in the NFL.
Yeah, he's playing outstanding. And you just look at it, the Lions didn't even rush for 20 yards the entire game. I believe they finished with what? Was it 14 yards they finished with?
It wasn't a lot.
It was not a lot of rushing yards at all. And they kept trying to establish the run. And then Jacksonville is a team that was known to have weaknesses in their rush defense. They could not run and could not perform at that level to get rushing yards versus Jacksonville. And I guess the note that everyone's kind of noticing is, when you look at the game, Stafford played okay. I don't believe he got any touchdowns throwing, but he did okay, limited the turnovers. But the part that kind of got a lot of people upset was the offensive line didn't play as well.
No, I think that was one of the biggest things is that, and it was really kind of strange. It's something that I haven't seen actually up until this point, is that Stafford was under a ton of pressure, and the sacks, Inky sacked 3 times. Those sacks, it looked like the line just collapsed, and they literally just piled on top of them. So that was probably the biggest thing, I think, in the game, is that you didn't have the similar protection from the offensive line. And I think it's probably good that they didn't run any more than they did. They still rushed it over 20 times, and then they're minimizing as much the mistakes as much as possible. And that was on display at all times this game. Stafford, he really didn't throw downfield at all. He was always either checking it down to one of his running backs, or he was thrown to one of those crossing routes that they always seem to run to a receiver.
Yeah, it was one of those games that, again, was it like 9-9 at halftime? Missed extra points. The Lions were part of the storyline with all these kickers missing extra points. The Jaguars missed one. So it was a little bit sloppy at first, and then you go, okay, the Lions showed moxie, and they were able to kind of come back again. But this comeback was different in that it wasn't late. They came back and got, they scored early in the fourth quarter, and they were able to hold on. But again, you can't really judge much against a team like Jacksonville. That team is such in disarray. Blake Bortles isn't playing that well. And then what stunk was a lot of injuries in that game. TJ Yeldon goes out with a concussion. A lot of players were going in and out of the game. So it was very challenging for a fan to watch that game for entertainment value. But hey, if you're a fan of the Lions, today you're sitting and you're watching a club that's 6-4, that's going to play on Thursday for a chance to continue to remain in first place. As we're sitting here today recording, Jason, they're the 3rd seed in the NFC, firmly in a spot in the postseason. And the way you look at it, the schedule is not daunting as of yet until it gets to the end of the schedule. And by that point, I believe you might have a DeAndre Levy, you might have Amir Abdullah.
Dude, we're not going to see Levy at all. I know that throughout this past week, they were like, oh, Levy, he's back, he's practicing. And then he's inactive for this game. And then what do we also hear is that they're working out linebacker James Laurinaitis, who is a middle linebacker.
Yeah.
DeAndre Levy is not coming back. That's a whole nother conversation if you want to start getting to that, is Levy's comments about CTE in the league. And I do want to sidetrack into that, because it is another discussion. Levy comes out last week saying, oh, these people, they just want us, they don't really care about our health. But then on the other turn comes in saying that he still wants to play.
It's unbelievable. Basically, you're shooting yourself in the foot. How do you get on the field? How do you put the organization, you put Coach Caldwell.
He thinks that he's, has symptoms of CTE already.
Unfortunately, you can't diagnose that until he passes away to see in the brain that he has those kind of symptoms, because you can't see lesions on the brain and go look and research that. But the part that's super tough is, okay, if you say that, how do you decide and look yourself in the mirror and go, okay, I'm starting to not be able to remember anything. I'm starting not to be able to kind of function properly every single day, and then still want to go out there. And it kind of lends the belief that a lot of fans have that, okay, are you sticking around just for the paycheck? We need you to be a middle linebacker. And
that's what it seems like, because I get it. If you don't want to play anymore because you're worried about your health, I am completely fine with that. But don't come out and say that, oh, I'm hurting, and I may have this horrible brain trauma, and you guys don't care about us. You just want us to go out and play. And then on the other foot say, I still want to play. That's your choice. No one is forcing you. No one is putting a gun to your head and telling you have to play this game. This is the choice that you made.
Exactly. And so it hurts the team all around. And you really feel bad for a guy like DeAndre Levy in that, what kind of position is he putting himself to kind of force himself to play football? Dude, just walk away. You signed the deal. You probably got a little bit of money up front. Go live your life. He's a talented guy. He probably could be a guy in the media. He can do some things. I would say if you're DeAndre Levy and his family and he's making those kind of comments, you got to get in his ear and get him to retire, because, he's not playing, wide receiver. He's playing linebacker, and his job is to smash people and to do some things that, game by game, hit by hit, is going to do some things to harm him. And so, yeah, those comments, when they came out, really left a lot of people scratching their head. And then, he's giving these comments to magazines like Men's Health, GQ. he writes for the Free Press, but he's not really following up with too many comments to the media locally to kind of get more insight into why is it that you're willing to come out and really play, with CTE? Because if you look at it, you're sending a bad message to the youth out there. The message is, hey, if you got brain trauma, if you're starting to feel the effects, don't force yourself to play because you're going to shorten your lifespan. He could significantly, with a bad hit, one key play, he could be a vegetable out there.
So,
It's dangerous.
Is it wrong then for fans, if he goes out and plays, is it wrong for us to cheer for him, to want him to do good? Because you're putting the fans now in a tough situation. Because normally, if a guy is out there, you're assuming that he's good to go, and I want him to be able to perform. If you go out there and you're not able to perform at 100%, then you shouldn't be out there.
Yeah.
I wonder if the Lions will get to the point where they're like, you know what? You're not going to play. You see it in basketball with the Miami Heat and Chris Bosh with his blood clots. They're saying, it's just too much of a risk for you to play. Now, it is different because blood clots, you can detect those. You can see those. CTE is something that they haven't figured it out yet. Until they pass away, and then they can diagnose it. So I really wonder if NFL teams at some point will just say, you know what, it's too much of a risk for you to play. We can't medically clear you. I mean, do you think that at any point that it'll get to that?
Yeah, I do believe so. I think that DeAndre Levy has really put himself kind of in a corner here and kind of took away some of his leverage in that he's talking about that he's playing with an injury. It puts the Lions in a tougher spot to clear him to play. And if you want to go out there and shake the notion that you're just out there for a paycheck, what does it benefit DeAndre Levy at this point in time to play football? If if you want to give the attitude, and the weird hypocrisy of it is he comes out and says that we need to kind of stop overvaluing sports and value human life and other issues. Well, that needs to be kind of applied by DeAndre. You need to value your life if that's the case, and you need to value your health and not get out there and try and hurt yourself further because you're somebody's kid, you're somebody's uncle, you have a lot more to give to the world than just being a football player. So those comments are really dangerous, and it will be interesting when he gets out there what the reaction is going to be. And he opens himself up for criticism. Let's say he kind of, goes to the sideline and maybe doesn't exactly go balls to the wall and smash somebody. Then you're going to open yourself up to question marks as to, hey, are you really going at it at the linebacker position, balls to the wall, like you need to in order to perform at that level? So all around the DeAndre Levy situation, once the ink was dry, it just went all downhill. It was a bad signing. Unfortunately, it's a bad signing, and we need a linebacker. And, Laurinaitis, okay, but he's not going to really significantly upgrade the Lions' defense. But they've been okay. Patchwork, they've done decently, but Ezekiel Elliott's going to put up some decent fantasy numbers when at home versus the Lions. Oh, my goodness. That could be a 3-touchdown day.
Hey, boy. You had to bring up Ezekiel Elliott. That team is doing really good.
It's a solid team. Dak Prescott. Man, listen.
Doesn't make a lot of sense. But
it does make a lot of sense. Great offensive line. You got a superstar wide receiver and a top-notch 1-2 running back in the entire league. That puts you in a great position to control the football. You don't have to fling the ball all over the place. And it's one of those things where Dak Prescott is, in one of those situations, right place, right time, perfect scenario, and he's out there and he took Tony Romo's job. And that's just great that they've decided, hey, when you go 9-1, in your first 10 games, life is good. And Dak Prescott is doing some amazing things with that organization. And that's what you got to do. When you get the opportunity, you don't go out there and play like Jared Goff did. You go out there, you play like Dak Prescott. Do some things offensively, hand the ball off to Ezekiel Elliott and do some things. And that's just how it goes. And the Cowboys, my goodness, they're looking at, Cowboys-Seahawks NFC title game. That would be awesome.
I don't know. You might be looking at Lions, Cowboys.
Ooh. No, listen, your ceiling for the Lions is just get to the postseason and maybe squeak out a win if you can get the game at home. The Lions got a lot of holes. Right now, they're the beneficiary of playing decent football. Matthew Stafford's having a career year, and your schedule is just one where teams basically like Jacksonville come in and shoot themselves in the foot.
And you get a lot of luck.
And a lot of luck,
which, if you get into the postseason, maybe if that luck doesn't run dry, you might actually make something. I don't want to say it. Something might happen if you make it into the playoffs, though.
Okay.
But this Lions team now, 6-4. You got the Vikings coming up on Thanksgiving, which I think they get the win over the Cardinals, which I think that is a pretty solid win to get for them. What do you think the probability? If they didn't win against the Cardinals, I would have said that we were probably going to beat the Vikings easily. But I think after they beat the Cardinals, I think they have a little bit more confidence. But we are at home. It's Thanksgiving. They definitely want to win. So, what do you think their chances are on Thursday?
65%. They're going to play well. Minnesota's going to come in. Remember, they're hungry too. They just beat Arizona, so it's going to be another slobber knocker game. It's going to be a fourth quarter game. I know it, and I would say this game again. Whoever has the ball last with under 30 seconds left is going to win the game. And it's going to be super close, exciting, but this time it's going to be the Lions going to 7-4. They're going to walk away on Thanksgiving with a victory. They're going to play well, shore up some things, and I think the short week helps them because they're used to it. Minnesota, not so much. And I do think Ford Field's going to do some things, and they're going to disrupt that Minnesota offense. And I'm
Their
thrilled.
offensive line is not good.
Yeah. So before we go to break, the common debate that everyone's having is: are the Lions good, lucky, or don't care? We're 6-4 in first place.
It's a combination of all three of those.
Come on, make a stand.
If I had to take a stand, I'm going to say that they're good. And I think that there's definitely luck involved, and there is definitely. I don't really care. They're just 6-4, but I'm going to lean more towards that they're good. And I don't say that saying that they're one of the top 3 or 5 teams in the league, but they're definitely one of the better teams in the league. I might put them right on the edge of the top 10 in the, if you go by power rankings, and everything is just kind of working out for them. And it all really starts with Matthew Stafford, is the way that he's playing. I mean, you see it with the Green Bay Packers. If Aaron Rodgers was playing at the level that he can play, the Packers would definitely be in our situation and probably be contending for one of the top teams in the league. But it's the other way around now. Stafford is playing at a high level. He's winning us games, and that's why I lean more towards good.
I don't care. 6-4 in first place. Give me a decent football game. At least get into the 30s, man. Play an offensive shootout type game on Thanksgiving. Give us some entertainment.
I just win a game. If you go to 7-4, you're telling me you probably only have to win 2 more games to legitimately get in the playoffs.
And you have all your division games at home, so it's all shaking out to be juicy, and the Lions are giving us a lot of excitement. So it's a great time to talk about the Lions and where they're at, and we just got to look at, handling some of the off-the-field stuff.
For sure. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about Michigan State and their debacle against the Buckeyes on Saturday. We'll talk about Michigan, but you're listening to the Motor City Sports Rant.
Yes, sir. You're listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, a collection of podcasts dedicated to all things Detroit sports. Check us out, and to support our podcast network, go visit DetroitSportsPodcast.com. That's DetroitSportsPodcast.com. It's where you can go to check out all the shows, when they air, what shows are dedicated to which sport. A great podcast network that we started in September of 2013. We're doing great things, and we can't continue to do it without your support. We keep the mics hot, the lights on here in the studio with your continued support, and all we ask is go check out DetroitSportsPodcast.com, and if you like what you're listening to, tell 1 or 2 other people, and that's how we can continue to grow this thing organically like we've been doing. We greatly appreciate all the support, everybody that downloads all the shows, everybody that's been supporting us when we go out there to Oakland or Detroit Titan basketball and checking out our tweets on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. We greatly appreciate all the support, and that's why we're able to continue to provide you with great Detroit sports content. That's DetroitSportsPodcast.com.
Motor City Sports Rant, Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Why are you rolling your eyes?
I'm only assuming that this is some sort of wrestling intro music.
Why are you assuming that?
Because that's exactly what it sounds like. It's the sound when you hear somebody's talking in the ring, and then you just hear the music start, and everyone's like, oh my God, it's this person!
Of course it's wrestling. It's Brock Lesnar.
Brock Lesnar got taken down like a sack of potatoes.
He got destroyed at the Survivor Series. But hey, when you're, rolling like that, that's what hey, if you're Brock Lesnar, you're cashing the check, you lay down to anybody, man. It doesn't matter.
No, I watched that. It was like about a minute and a half where he got speared twice by Goldberg and then just got taken out. Do you think that that's how the fight was supposed to be, or was he legitimately hurt? Because I will say, when I saw him take that first hit, I wouldn't be surprised if the dude ruptured a spleen or something.
No, I think that Goldberg, probably in combination of them wanting to hype up another match, maybe at the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania, they probably wanted him to kind of make it quick and to shock the world, really. I mean, that made news everywhere that he beat Brock Lesnar in less than 90 seconds. So I think it was planned too. And the fact of the matter is, dude, Goldberg's 49 years old. So you're not going to want him to go out there. And they fought before, at WrestleMania 20, and it wasn't a great match. Everyone was kind of expecting them to flop around and not be as great as some of the younger wrestlers. So doing it this way, it shocked everybody. Everybody is still talking about it, and it sets up for a future storyline. So I think it was all good, done the right way, especially coming after an hour match before. The match that how do you put on a performance that great coming after 10 of the greatest wrestlers of the generation fighting each other? It was a great 5-on-5 match. Coming after that, I think it was just perfect. End the pay-per-view and call it a night by 10:30. It was perfect.
Well, I guess somebody's still paying to see these wrestling matches. Not me. I'm glad I got to see it, though. But let's move on to some real sports where it's not all scripted. And let's talk about stupid Michigan State Spartans and their loss against Ohio State Buckeyes. That was awful. Did you watch the game, John? Were you watching when it happened?
I was watching via the Twitter, checking out the score. I was like, okay, good. The weather played a factor like it usually does in Michigan, and Michigan State was able to stay in the game. A great first drive.
Tough.
They played them tough. And again, you would argue that this is probably Mark D'Antonio's worst year coaching. His decision-making was awful. And once you go and tie the game running the football, L.J. Scott is the guy that is the man.
They actually were giving it to him on a consistent basis that we haven't seen all season.
It's unbelievable, what L.J. Scott was able to do, despite the fact that they try to rotate him with Holmes and Madre London. They rotate him. I don't understand why
they didn't do that as much, though, this game.
Not as much, but they still do. L.J. Scott should be getting the ball more. So then, okay, whether you agree or disagree with them going for two, you tie the game, or you get within a point of the game.
Wait,
okay?
But before we move on, do you want to hear what I said after he went for that 2-point conversion?
What'd you say?
So I'm at the radio station. Nobody else is there, thankfully. So I'm gonna back up from the mic for a second, and I'll tell you what I said once he was going for two and the missed 2-point conversion. Goddamn D'Antonio! God! D'Antonio! Fuck you! Jesus!
That's what you were saying?
Yeah. I can't do that at home because, one, I scare my dog, and two, my wife doesn't. When I go crazy like that for sports, she's like, "Oh my God, you're crazy." So I can't do that at home. So obviously nobody else is around. I can actually let my real emotions go to their fullest extent. And that is exactly how I felt, because that made absolutely no sense. I say it makes absolutely no sense. I can understand D'Antonio's thinking, but it's dumb thinking. I mean, I want to continue on 2-point conversion. I know you wanted to. You might have said, "Oh, yeah, whether you agree or not." I completely disagree on the 2-point conversion.
Listen, D'Antonio's thinking was, listen, we're not going to really compete with them. We don't got a lot to really play for. We tied the game.
Don't you want to play to win, though?
I think that...
that's not playing to win.
I think going for it was fine. You could argue either way, both sides. But the play call was more egregious. Why are you putting the ball in the hands of Tyler O'Connor? He is on the level, not on the level of Connor Cook. He's on the level of Andrew Maxwell.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought, is that he is much closer to Andrew Maxwell. But we don't have a Connor Cook to come in and save us.
So you call a passing play? That's the play that you kind of decide as a coaching staff that that's the right play? I mean, literally, Tyler O'Connor should have just checked out of it.
It was a horrible call. And, I think the prospect of running it would have been scary too. And I think if they would have ran it and missed it, I still would have been just as angry. But I told you I had some stats to say why they shouldn't have gone for it. So at the end of the day, they finished with 334 total yards, 200 yards. Oh, wait, no. 207 rushing yards, 127 passing yards. So you're averaging 6 yards per pass attempt and 5.9 yards per rush attempt. But let's break that down a little bit. So 8 for 21, 127 yards passing. Take away that 64-yard touchdown run by LJ Scott, you're going 7 for 20 for 63 yards, averaging 3 yards a pass. If you just average that 3 yards, you're likely not going to get a touchdown. Let's go to rushing. You had 207 yards on 35 attempts, averaging 5.9 yards. Goddamn D'Antonio! Gah! D'Antonio! Fuck you! Jesus! Let's just take away that Chris Fry, the fake punt, where he got 25 yards. You're down to 182 yards, 34 attempts, still averaging 535 a pop, which is still pretty solid. Let's take away that 61-yard run by LJ Scott, though. You're down to 121 yards, 33 attempts, only averaging 3.7 yards a carry. Not that good. Let's take away the 2 other 20-yard runs, the 20-plus yard runs from LJ Scott. You're down to 71 yards rushing on 31 attempts, averaging 2.3 yards a carry. When the passing was that bad in the game, and the running outside of those big plays, which you can't take those away, but those were chunk plays, and you're not going to get those every down. Why would you go for 2? You know that Ohio State has a very good defense. You've kept each other in check all day long. And your defense has been stopping them as well. As outside of that touchdown, the touchdown that Ohio State had in the second half, which was really predicated on another chunk play by Mike Weber, which got him down to 17, you were keeping them in check. You were taking them 3, 4, and out. Why not go for the extra point? Your defense gets you the ball back, and then you have the ball at the end of the game to drive maybe 40, 50 yards and let Geiger kick a field goal. If you're really trying to play to win the game, if we were the champ, if we were if we were undefeated at that point, do you think he wouldn't have gone for the 2-point conversion? If you're really trying to win the game, you don't go for the 2-point conversion. That is a defeatist's mentality of saying, oh, we're probably not going to win the game anyway. We probably have a 30% chance of getting this 2-point conversion. Let's just try it anyways, because he's clearly sending a message that he doesn't trust his defense to be able to stop Ohio State when they really need to. And then he doesn't really trust his offense to be able to go and win the game.
Yeah, it's all around. You look at Michigan State, it's just changes need to happen. Adam from the Doc and Jock podcast said it best. You start to feel like D'Antonio's thinking he's the smartest guy in the room. You come out and you tell the media that you were thinking about going for 2 earlier in the week, but you also got to look at the situation. You went for 2 with 4 minutes left. And the way you look at it is you were going to win the game, but that's what you were thinking. But there's still 4 minutes left. Ohio State could get the ball once, twice, maybe 3 times more to go down there. So the thinking was, why go for 2 with 4:41 left? I mean, you give them credit for trying to do it, but if you're going to do it, you have to call a run play. You just have to call a run play, and you go with your best guy because you leave yourself open to a lot of criticism. Then Michigan State gets the ball back, but you hold them, but you get the ball back with relatively little time left, and Tyler O'Connor is rattled. And, if you blow on him, he starts getting rattled and starts running, and he's not a good quarterback. It's just one of those things where you now look at it in totality. Everybody was talking, Jason, before the year that it's going to be a transition year, that you're probably going to lose the big games to Ohio State, maybe Michigan. You should have started Lewerke the entire way, because that's going to be the defining choice of the 2016 season, is that you evaluated everybody in that quarterback room. And Mark D'Antonio, in his 10 years, has had great hits in terms of Kirk Cousins and Connor Cook, but it almost negates it with the absolute abysmal quarterbacks that he's thrown out there in Andrew Maxwell and Tyler O'Connor. You cannot throw Tyler O'Connor out there and say to everybody, this is our guy. You misread the situation entirely. It's a terrible thing that he did, and now you see a team that's probably going to get destroyed by Penn State, and it's a sad situation all around. You can't have Tyler O'Connor. You need to start Lewerke, or you needed to, I know they wanted to redshirt Messiah DeWeaver, but you chose wrong. And when you choose wrong and you have a season like this, your season's now on fire. He's going to go into next year with a lot of pressure because Harbaugh comes in there full speed ahead, 10 wins his first year, already 10 wins in his second year. He ain't stopping. That train's going to blow you by. And, I listen, before we preface it and talk about the Michigan game real fast before we get out of here, I give D'Antonio credit for the last 10 years, but it's a now business. And this is a time where we're in the era of college football playoff, and we're in an era where good coaches come in like Urban Meyer, good coaches come in like a Jim Harbaugh, and they win immediately. They don't mess around. And in that situation, if Michigan goes to the National College Football Playoff, look out, man. Forget it. You're going to be left behind.
Unless the whole scenario plays out where Michigan wins a championship and then Harbaugh wants to win a Super Bowl and he comes to the Lions.
There's that inner debate between Michigan fans is that is Jim Harbaugh going to take big money? Dude, why would you leave? It's the best job.
Because he's Harbaugh. Nobody knows what Harbaugh's going to do.
It's the best job. Oh, he's staying, dude. It's the best job. He's the king of the world. He has the media in the palm of his hands. It's mostly great coverage. You go 10-1, 10-2 every year. Listen, they won 10 games with Rudock. They won 10 games with Wilton Spate. Come on now. These aren't guys that you go, oh, these are the baddest quarterbacks in the world. Wait till he gets his badass Tom Brady. Look out. You might be seeing undefeated seasons, national title appearances. If that's the system that he's running, you get an upgraded offensive line, a better running back, slightly better defenders. Oh my God, dude, you got a solid team there.
All I'm saying is that you can't discount Harbaugh. Harbaugh in his crazy mind, there's no way that you can just discount that he's going to stay in Michigan for the rest of his career, because I think there's always going to be that possibility of, hey, baby brother or big brother, he's got a Super Bowl. I want a Super Bowl too. And I already have a college football championship. Maybe he goes back to the NFL. But moving on to the game at hand, the game, as it's appropriately titled, is Michigan, Ohio State. This is probably the first time in years, really, that it's actually meant something. And I don't know. What do you think?
Here's what I think. I would have given Michigan a much better chance with Wilton Spate. There's still arguments that he's going to play, but I don't believe it. I think it's all smoke and mirrors. I think that he might return if they make a bowl game playoff, or if they make the college football national semifinals or finals. He might make an appearance. But with John O'Korn, he looked shaky, but that was probably due to a lot of the elements. Man, it was like snowball out there, and it's one of those things where your first game, you always look a little bit shaky. I expect that he's going to come out and play a little bit better. I just think that if this game was at the Big House, I would firmly give Michigan the advantage. But being what's at stake, the fact that Ohio State needs to win this game to continue their hopes, it's going to be a slobber knocker, as they say. It's going to be a tight, super tight game. And I think it's going to come down to who's going to make those key plays. And I think that Ohio State just has slightly better talent. Not a lot. I would not be shocked if Michigan won. But sitting here today, I think that Ohio State's going to take it in a relatively tight game, maybe along the lines of 21-17, 24-20. It's going to be super tight. It's going to be also dependent on what the weather's going to look like out there on Saturday. But I like Michigan's opportunity to compete. I just don't think, as we sit here today, that with a backup quarterback for a second year in a row, you think Ohio State's going to lose to a backup quarterback 2 years in a row? I think Michigan's going to have to really exploit their weaknesses now that you've seen. Michigan State exposed a little bit more that you can get some running yards on this team. And if they go out and execute, man, wouldn't that be amazing? In his second year, Jim Harbaugh beats Michigan State and Ohio State, and that'll shut everybody up.
It really would, and it would firmly plant him atop of the Big Ten. And D'Antonio would just be kind of left in the wayside, unfortunately, because it's just going to be Harbaugh and Urban Meyer. And I think for this game, O'Korn, he was able to do what he was able to do against Indiana. I don't think he's going to be able to get away with stuff that he did against Indiana going up against Ohio State. So I do give the edge to Ohio State, but I think it's a really close edge. I think I'm not sure what the point spread is, but I would probably take Michigan because I think that they're going to keep it close, and it's going to come down to who can have a better run game. And it's going to be the host of running backs from Michigan against Mike Weber, that Samuel kid, and JT Barrett. If they can shut down JT Barrett, they can have a really good chance against this team. So we'll see. Point wise, I'd probably go 24-21 Ohio State.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Davion Smith is doing some things. Do you see how hard he ran versus Indiana? My goodness.
I'm not a huge fan of Devion Smith, though.
You don't think he'll do that kind of performance, his senior year, trying to get his team to the football playoff and try the Big Ten title game? I think he'll do some things. They're going to count on him.
I mean, they're going to count on him, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do it. I actually was really surprised of Ohio State Mike Weber. Mike Weber and Michigan State might not be the best test because it seemed like Weber was just running over Michigan State defenders. And I'd like to think with all the seniors that Michigan has that they're going to be able to do a little bit more than what the Spartans did on Saturday. So it's going to be a huge fight, and I'm going to be interested to see what happens.
Yeah, it'd be a very interesting matchup as to what's going to occur this Saturday. Ooh, good deal. Do you kind of root for? Do you start to turn the tide and root for Michigan?
No, I'm never going to root for Michigan, John. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't either. You went to the school.
No, I'm not rooting for Michigan. I'm just sitting there going, "Wow, man!" When you see great coaching, you see teams that play well. It makes it to be a nice story. And Jim Harbaugh,
nice story, and Jim Harbaugh, that's like oil and water right there.
You don't think that
Harbaugh isn't a nice story? Harbaugh is a crazy man. Why would I root for that guy to win a championship?
Dude, because it's, Michigan is a storied program. You start to see what it means for the University of Michigan and where they came from. Similar to the feeling we got for being a Michigan State fan. They were down for so long. They come back and they get their coach, and it's unbelievable what he does. Jim Harbaugh, seemingly, he does ruffle feathers and things like that, but he's brought back a program from the ashes, just boom, being himself. So I'm not rooting for them to win. If they're going to lose, I'd rather them lose big time. So big league. I'd hope that they would lose in a major fashion. But it'll be interesting to see what goes down. And it's not as black and white as we thought it would be. I think that they have a real legitimate shot, and we have to respect them for it.
All right, well, that'll wrap it up for this episode. Next week, we'll maybe be talking about Michigan going to the Big Ten championship game. Maybe not. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe Penn State is going to be going to the Big Ten championship, and that would seemingly almost eliminate the Big Ten from the college football playoff. But we'll have to wait and see. For John Macaroon, I am Jason Jarvi. Till next week, later. Goddamn D'Antonio! Gah! D'Antonio! Fuck you! Jesus!
Okay, nice idiot. F you. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.